I thought Griffin was too stupid to realize I was cheating. Even as Michelle's Subaru and Kathleen's Honda rolled into our driveway that Saturday night, headlights slicing through the late spring gloom, I never suspected he'd walk in on us. I'd convinced myself that a closet full of receipts, hidden phone notifications, and hastily deleted browser tabs could keep my secret intact. I was living a double life, successful realtor by day, reckless thrill-seeker by night, and I believed I'd perfected the balancing act. Michelle collapsed onto the sectional couch first, her laughter bubbling up as she cracked open a bottle of red wine. Kathleen followed, tossing her keys on the end table and kicking off her heels. I locked the front door behind them and flipped on soft jazz, the living room glowing in lamplight. We'd spent months planning this girls' night, cocktails, gossip, maybe a game of Cards Against Humanity, but I'd booked it as cover. My real reason for being home alone was Sullivan and Company, where I'd been quietly meeting with Sutton after hours. Griffin was away on business. He'd texted that morning, a too bright, have fun, babe, and a promise to bring home croissants. I'd smiled at the message, then deleted it. Because as far as I was concerned, my real fun had nothing to do with the corner bakery. When I dropped into the red leather booth at Sullivan's private office that afternoon, Sutton had been waiting, crisp in his navy blazer. We'd talked shop for 30 minutes, project deadlines, market strategy, before the distance between us dissolved in one electric glance. By 6:30, I was back at home, pouring tequila with my friends. Michelle toasted to "living our best lives," and Kathleen cheered. They didn't know why I'd left the office early, didn't wonder why I'd arranged a hush-hush meeting in the first place. I slipped from the party into the study, texting Sutton, front door unlocked. Come around back. In the kitchen, I heard muted laughter, the clink of ice in glasses. My pulse hit 120, but I told myself I was fine. He arrived 10 minutes later. The moonlight spilled through the sliding door blinds as Sutton entered my sanctuary, where I had planned every detail. He closed the door softly behind him, leaned in to brush a strand of hair from my face, and whispered, "You look incredible." That was the first time I'd felt truly seen in months. Not as Griffin's wife, not as a high-pressure agent juggling listings and open houses, but as a woman who could command a room with a single look. I missed that version of myself. We didn't even make it to the couch. The study door clicked shut. In less than 10 minutes, we had proof that the distance between us was as thin as the leather in my heels. When Sutton straightened his tie, he said, "You're sure he's not coming back early?" I shrugged. "He's in Chicago till Monday." I lied. I checked his calendar an hour before, and his flight home had changed without notice. But in truth, I didn't care. I was caught in the rush, and I convinced myself there was time. Downstairs, Michelle and Kathleen toasted again. Their voices drifted up the carpeted stairs. I stood at the top for a moment, heart hammering, thinking I could slip back into the role of dutiful wife before things got messy. Instead, I stayed upstairs. I ran my hand across the spines of my law books, old trophies from college that I had never touched, and then I pressed my phone against my ear and called Heather. Heather was my oldest friend and the unwitting witness I required. She answered on the first ring, her voice warm. "Hey girl, are you good?" I laughed, a breathless sound. "They're here. Do your thing." I didn't ask how, I knew she'd already staged the living room. By the time Sutton disappeared into shadow again, Heather was downstairs, wearing my gray cashmere cardigan, holding a plate of cheese and crackers. She gave me the thumbs up. When I rejoined the party 20 minutes later, the music had shifted to something more upbeat. We danced in the living room like we were 19 again, feet bare on the cool wood floors. I lifted my glass and toasted to freedom. To secrets, I said, and second chances. Michelle and Kathleen clinked their glasses. No one asked questions. We were too busy chasing laughter and forgetting regrets. At one point I stumbled into the kitchen, where I caught my reflection in the stainless steel refrigerator door. My lipstick was smeared, my hair gone wild. My phone vibrated, 3 missed calls from Griffin. I ignored them. A second text arrived, "Don't stay out too late." Then a third, "Love you." I read them, closed my eyes, and tucked the phone in my pocket. Love felt like another suit I'd outgrown, a performance I no longer needed to give. By midnight, the girls were sprawled across my bedroom floor, passed out from too much wine and too few boundaries. I scooped up a pillow and tiptoed back downstairs, expecting to find him gone. Instead, I saw the faint glow of his laptop on the coffee table. A folder named Evidence blinked on the desktop. My breath caught. I never heard him come in. He was standing 3 feet behind me, arms crossed, expression blank. "Hello," he said. His voice was calm. Too calm. I felt a tremor through my core. The idea that Griffin could be anything but shocked or angry broke something inside me. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't crying. He was simply there, watching me watch him, and that silence cut deeper than any fight. I wanted to explain. To scream that it was over, that I didn't know how it happened, that I'd fix it. But I only sank to my knees, staring at the screen. Rows and rows of screenshots, me and Sutton in car interiors, boardrooms, hotel hallways. My texts with Heather under innocuous group names. Receipts for late-night dinners at bistros I'd marked a team meeting. Every bit of proof carefully stitched together. He didn't need words. He closed the laptop and reached into his pocket for his phone. "Good night," he said. Then he walked up the stairs, pausing at the top to close the bedroom door behind him. I crawled across the floor toward the girls, but they were insensible, oblivious. I curled into a ball, shivering. The moment felt eternal, the living room lights too bright, the rug too scratchy, the world too small. In the morning, Griffin was gone. No note. No croissants. No, "I love you." Just an empty mug on the counter and a voicemail, "I've secured everything. We'll talk when you're ready." I played it a dozen times. His voice was even, practiced, as if reading a script. I realized then that every part of my life, the house, the bank accounts, the social calendar, had been quietly taken from beneath me. I called Heather, but she didn't pick up. I texted Michelle and Kathleen, telling them it was over, that I needed space. The phone went silent. My phone buzzed with messages from clients confirming appointments I was supposed to lead. I stared at the calendar, blank squares mocking me. How was I supposed to sell houses when I'd lost my own? I went through the motions that day: coffee, makeup, key handover at an open house, each step feeling alien. I remembered the first time Sutton had touched my hand under the mahogany boardroom table, the thrill of being wanted. I remembered the rush of control in orchestrating that party, the secret performance behind every laugh. I realized I'd been chasing an illusion of power while giving away everything that mattered. Back in the empty living room that evening, I sat on the couch and let the tears come. For once, there was no one to witness my breakdown, no laptop of evidence to gloat. Just the three of us, me, my regret, and the echo of laughter that would never feel the same. I hadn't lost a game. I'd lost myself. I gathered my keys and drove to a small rental I'd scouted months before, in case of emergencies. The lease started next week, but I moved in that night. White walls, no furniture. A blank page. I sat in the middle of the hardwood floor, phone in hand, and typed one message: "Griffin, we need to talk." I didn't know what came next, but I knew I had to own my choices. The life I'd built on secrets was shattered, and I was left holding the pieces. I paced the empty living room of my new rental, the hardwood floor cold beneath my bare feet. My phone lay beside me, screen cracked from a nervous toss, still displaying Griffin's voicemail: "I've secured everything. We'll talk when you're ready." It took me 3 tries to dial his mobile, fingers trembling. When he finally answered, his voice was flat. "Where are you?" he asked. "In the city," I lied. The truth, across town in a bare-bones studio apartment, felt like admitting defeat. We agreed to meet at a small cafe halfway between our old house and his parents' place. I arrived first, clutching a latte that had gone cold, my reflection blurring in the window pane. I rehearsed what to say: "Sorry, please forgive me, let's fix this." But when he arrived, tall, his suit jacket thrown over one shoulder, none of my lines held weight. We sat side by side at a corner table cluttered with sugar packets and creamers. He didn't look at me. He stared at the florals on the wallpaper and ran a hand through his hair, the familiar gesture that once made me melt. I cleared my throat. I'm sorry, I began, the words tasting hollow. He exhaled. You knew how much you had. Our house. My family. Our life. His eyes finally met mine, and I saw how deep the hurt ran. It was no longer the quiet disappointment I'd faced that night, this was something jagged and raw. I know, I whispered. I know I broke everything. He folded his arms. Why? The question hung between us like a guillotine blade. Was it loneliness? The thrill of secrecy? Midlife panic? All of it. But none of it justified what I'd done. I felt invisible, I confessed, voice cracking. I built this perfect life, open houses, client dinners, Instagram posts, and I forgot to live inside it. I thought I could have both the sparkling facade and the hidden excitement. I was wrong. He studied me as if weighing my confession against the evidence he'd collected. That's not why you cheated. Tears stung my eyes. Part of it was you, I admitted, surprising myself. You were always so calm, so steady. I got jealous of your certainty. I wanted someone who made me feel unpredictable again. He shook his head. That's selfish. I nodded. It was. We sat in silence until the barista cleared our table. Griffin stood, paid the bill without a word, and walked away. I watched his back, feeling the finality of each step. The divorce papers arrived 2 weeks later. Sealed in a thick, white envelope, they felt heavier than any box of moving supplies I'd carried out of our house. I hired a lawyer recommended by a colleague, someone efficient, unflinching, who drew up the simplest settlement possible. No prenuptial, no complicated asset division, I kept the rental business I'd started on the side, he kept the primary residence and our joint investments. Signing my name at the bottom of those pages was both terrifying and liberating. I was ending a 10-year marriage, dissolving the very identity I'd curated for so long. When I left the lawyer's office, the sun was setting, igniting the sky in bruised purples and fiery oranges. I walked to the nearby park and sat on a bench, watching joggers push past me, parents chase toddlers, life moving on. I closed my eyes and let the wind carry away the choking knot in my chest. In the months that followed, I rebuilt my routine. Mornings began with yoga classes, tiny studios full of incense and encouraging mantras, and ended with me back at my desk, drafting property listings that gleamed with optimism, cozy 2-bedroom with skyline views, perfect starter home in family-friendly neighborhood. I threw myself into work, not to hide but to rediscover the joy I once found in helping people find home. Therapy became my lifeline. In a sunlit office painted mint green, I sat across from Dr. Alvarez, unpacking every detail of my affair. I confronted the shame I'd buried beneath sarcasm and self-deprecating humor. I learned the difference between guilt, the pang of doing wrong, and shame, the toxic sense that I was wrong. With each session, I chipped away at that shame, preparing to rebuild a new self rooted in truth rather than performance. I reached out to Michelle and Kathleen. We met at a wine bar, strictly public, strictly neutral territory. Their apologies were awkward, half mumbled between sips. I forced a laugh. Water's just fine, I said. We sat through stale small talk about work and weather. No one mentioned that night at my house. I paid the tab and drove home alone, realizing that some friendships dissolve under the weight of betrayal, and that was their right. Heather became my rock. She hosted me on weekends, feeding me chicken soup and listening without judgment. When I cried, she handed me tissues. When I laughed at a joke, she laughed with me. In her living room, walls plastered with travel posters and fairy lights, I found solace in just being myself, without any masks or hidden agendas. One evening, 6 months after that fateful girls' night, I impulsively booked a ticket to Lisbon. I didn't know why, maybe a book I'd read mentioned its pastel-colored buildings, its salty sea breeze, but the urge felt urgent. I packed a single suitcase, boarded a plane, and for 10 days wandered cobblestone streets, sipped espresso in sun-drenched plazas, and wrote in a small leather journal. In Lisbon, I met strangers who became friends. A retired teacher who invited me to her apartment for fish stew, 2 architecture students who showed me the azulejos at dawn, a dog named Caramello who followed me on my morning runs. I didn't mention Griffin or the affair. I simply existed as myself, the woman who'd cheated, yes, but but also the woman who could heal. When I returned home, I printed one of my favorite photos, the old lady stirring her stew, caramello curled at my feet. I taped it above my desk, a reminder that life could be simple, generous, and beautiful when I let it be. Back in the city, I launched a new project, a blog called Realistically Yours, where I wrote about honest endings and imperfect beginnings. My first post, How I Lost Everything and Found Myself, went viral among women in midlife transition. Comments poured in, stories of divorce, of careers restarted, of finding love outside romance, with friends, with passions, with themselves. Through the blog, I connected with a community of women who valued authenticity over perfection. We organized meetups in cafes and co-working spaces. We held workshops on negotiation, self-care, and boundary setting. I facilitated sessions on recognizing warning signs in relationships and rebuilding self-worth after mistakes. Each time I spoke, I felt the tremor of my old fear, of being exposed, but it was drowned out by gratitude and solidarity. Professionally, I rebranded my real estate business. No more glossy brochures promising picture-perfect domestic bliss. My listings now highlighted resilience, charming bungalow, perfect for new chapters, cozy condo, ideal for fresh starts. Clients appreciated the candor, the acknowledgement that homes could be vessels for renewal as much as for stability. My referral network grew, drawn to my honesty and empathy. On a crisp autumn morning, I hosted an open house for a renovated loft downtown. As prospective buyers wandered the exposed brick walls and brushed against the wrought iron railing, I felt a familiar thrill, the one I'd chased with Sutton, disguised as dangerous excitement. But this time it was real, pride in my work, connection with people seeking their own fresh starts. I smiled genuinely, no masks required. By my first divorce anniversary, I had new routines: Wednesday morning spin classes, Friday night potluck dinners with my blog community, Sunday afternoon hikes by the river. I dated casually, more out of curiosity than need, and learned the art of saying no when something didn't feel right. I stood up for my time, my money, my emotional bandwidth. I discovered that being alone wasn't a sentence, it was a choice, an opportunity to curate my life on my own terms. One evening, I found myself alone on my balcony, wrapped in a chunky knit blanket, glass of wine in hand. The city lights twinkled below. I thought of Griffin, of the life we shared and the choices that unraveled it. I felt no hatred, only empathy for the two of us, two flawed people who had tried and failed. I raised my glass. To lessons learned, I whispered. Now, as I reflect on that night when my world shattered, I see how every fragment of my past built the woman I've become. I see the perfect wife chasing an illusion, the fearsome thrill-seeker longing for authenticity, and the broken soul who dared to piece herself back together. I carry those parts with me, woven into my story like threads of gold in a kintsugi bowl. It's the visible scars that make me stronger, not less. I don't yet know what the next chapter holds, whether love will find me again, or if my greatest partnership will be with my work, my community, my own ever-growing self-respect. But I do know this: I will write it with honesty, live it with courage, and embrace each new beginning without the baggage of old regrets.